Amongst the quiet lanes and wide windswept fields of Lincolnshire, something lingers. The land seems calm, open and still, but beneath the soil lie old secrets, whispers caught in the hedgerows, and stories that refuse to die. In many old communities dotted across Britain, urban legends and ghostly tales are passed along like secret whispers, swapped over pints with friends in the pub, school children who race past a lane because of a story they were told by their classmates, and ordinary people like you or I doing a double take over the shoulder because what was that we caught in the corner of our eye? Ghost stories, folklore, and the flicker of truth behind the myth. They're all stitched into the fabric of our world, and sometimes they stem from real-life horror stories. This is one such tale. A butchered bride, a man left rotting in the wind, and a village that would be reminded forever. This isn't just a ghost story, though there are whispers of one. This is the terrible, true tale of Lincolnshire's last gibbeted murderer. This is the story of Tom Otter.
In the shadow of these ancient stone walls, a man once waited for his execution. He was accused of one of the most brutal, gruesome murders that the county of Lincolnshire had ever seen. I mean, it's so gruesome that they've even named a street after him, and that street still stands today. I will show you soon. So that is what this video is about. Now, if you're new to the channel, my name's Claire. This is the Wanderlust Way. Firstly, I want to say thank you to everybody that supports the channel by liking, commenting, subscribing and sharing. You're helping the channel to grow, and you're allowing me to continue on adventures like this and sharing the stories that I find with you. So if you're ready for a little bit of gruesome Lincolnshire history, then pull up a chair. That's enough waffle. Let's wander.
In the early 1800s, a man named Thomas Temporal found work as a labouring banker, someone who maintained the canal banks near Lincoln. He was described by newspapers as a stout, handsome man, about 5'9", but others who knew him better used words like cruel and malicious. He was said to have a temper and a disturbing fondness for mistreating animals. What few people realised, however, was that Tom was living under a false name. Temporal was his mother's maiden name, a smokescreen to hide his true identity. You see, Tom was already married, with a wife and child living in Nottinghamshire, and his real name was Tom Otter. But here in Lincolnshire, he had started a new life and a new relationship with a young girl called Mary. He carried on with her as if he were a new person, assuming this new name, and all appeared well until Mary fell pregnant.
Okay, so this is the part in the story where Thomas's double life starts to catch up with him and it becomes a little bit inconvenient. It's the 3rd of November 1805. Mary Kirkham is about 8 months pregnant, obviously showing a bump, and the parish want to know who the father of her baby is. Now, in those days, it just wasn't acceptable to be unmarried with child, and so a lot of pressure was put on the pair for them to do the honest thing and get married. Now, they came here to the church in South Highcombe with 2 witnesses. So on that day, 3rd of November 1805, Thomas Temporal and Mary Kirkham got married. And it should have been a wonderful day, a joyous day. But it wasn't, was it? Because we all know where this story is going to go. But it can't take away from the fact that this place is absolutely stunning, and I will try and show you a little bit of it. It's very quiet here today. But yet, 2 overseers of the poor, they were there at the wedding. They were the witnesses, and they were probably the ones that put a little bit of pressure on them to get married in the first place. Goodness knows what Thomas was thinking, knowing that he was already married. Would he get caught? What would his other wife say when she found out, if she ever found out? Was he missing his other wife? Was he thinking about her when he was getting married to Mary? So we can sort of imagine they would have come probably through these gates. Don't know what they would have looked like then. And they would have come up here. Now the church unfortunately isn't open today. They'd have probably come round here. Goodness knows what he was thinking. Goodness knows what she was thinking. 8 months pregnant. And they went through here. Went through here to get married.
On Sunday the 3rd of November 1805 in South Hykeham, Thomas Temporal married Mary Kirkham. He gave his false name and nobody questioned it. With Mary around 8 months pregnant, this was what was known as a knobstick wedding, the old term for a shotgun marriage under duress. Now, Mary had no idea her new husband was already married, but she would learn the truth in the most horrific way possible, barely 24 hours later. The day after the wedding, Tom and Mary were spotted by witnesses walking together over the canal bridge. Now, I'm here in Saxilby today and the canal bridge is a bit more new. I've looked at the dates on the board, so this wouldn't have been the bridge. However, it would have been in this area, and I'm told that there was a wooden bridge and a swing bridge before. So the two of them, so we'll walk over and I'll tell you the tale. So the two of them were seen together walking over the bridge. The witnesses have told people that. However, they didn't reach the destination together, we know that now, and what would follow later on would haunt this local area for generations. It's become, according to my friend who worked here in the local pub, it's a bit of a local legend around here, and with some quite ghostly tales surrounding it as well. But it's such a horrific crime, so there's no doubt. So this is the bridge, yeah, or this is the area, the canal. I mean, it's beautiful here today. There's lots of narrow boats and things down there. You could spend a lovely afternoon here, a few pints and watching over the canal, and you'd probably never know the terrible tale of Tom Otter. They walked side by side, newlyweds, with less than a day between them and the vows they'd made. Witnesses later came forward, recalling glimpses of the couple journeying together through the quiet countryside. Today, commuters to Lincoln might pass close to the spot without a second thought, but somewhere out there, among the fields and roadside hedges, something terrible happened. Tom Otter struck Mary with a hedge stake. Her skull was fractured, her jaw broken, stab marks to her neck, and the ground around her stained with blood. It was a brutal act against the person he was supposed to love and the child he was meant to protect. Now, I have heard some horrific local whispers, the kind of details that are never printed in newspapers but passed down quietly between generations. I can't verify them, and I do not want to give you too much horror, so I won't share them. But what I will say is that whatever happened in those final moments, Tom made certain that neither Mary nor the child she was carrying would survive. We are now at Drinsey Nook, which is a road, with the road name of the road, and it was here that on the early morning of the 4th of November, two local men made a very grim discovery, and of course that was the discovery of the body of Mary, bloodied, battered, not a pleasant sight indeed. And it's really hard to imagine it when you're here because it's so beautiful. I mean, you've got fields behind you. Yes, I can hear the sound of cars in the distance. And we're not far from Lincoln. Lincoln's just that way on. But it's really peaceful, and I can only just imagine the two of them walking down here. And for some reason, he decides to murder her. Probably thought he would get away with it as well, because it's even now, centuries later, it's still really, really quiet. But he's not going to get away with it, is he? No, of course he's not. Mary's body was quickly identified, possibly by the witnesses who were there at the wedding. and Lincoln constables were dispatched to find her husband. They caught up with Tom at an inn in Lincoln, where he was arrested without resistance. "I'm as innocent as the child unborn," he claimed.
Now, one of the horrific things about this crime that sort of stands out is that when they arrested Tom, he was still wearing the wedding clothes that he'd had on when he got married to Mary. And there were specks of blood on his clothes that had dried out. And that was a bit of a giveaway, I think.
So behind me is the Sun Inn pub, which is in Saxilby. And funnily enough, my friend Bernice used to work here, and she's the one that told me about this story in the first place and asked me to create a video some months ago now. But we're here, and the Sun Inn is where they supposedly brought Mary's body when she was discovered, and it's also likely to be the place where Tom's inquest was held.
Inside, with the coroner present and a jury of 20 locals, Mary's battered body lay sprawled out. The jury returned a verdict of willful murder, and Tom Temporal, also known as Tom Otter, was committed to Lincoln Castle to await trial.
Now, somewhere in this church in Saxilby, Mary and her unborn child were quietly buried, while her husband lay waiting in his cell for what would become of him. Unfortunately, there is no headstone to mark their grave, so we'll just walk through for a little while and pay our respects to Mary and the baby. On the 12th of March 1806, Tom Otter stood trial at Lincoln.
The evidence was mostly circumstantial. No witnesses had seen the blow struck, but more than 20 people testified that Tom and Mary had been seen walking together toward the moor. The damning blood on his wedding jacket still there, despite Otter's desperate attempt to scratch it out. After a 5-hour trial, the jury returned its verdict: guilty. He was sentenced to death. Originally, the sentence included dissection, a grim fate, but not uncommon for murderers. But something changed.
Now, just hours before his execution, a decision was made that Thomas wouldn't be dissected after all. He would be gibbeted. His body would be put in chains and left to rot, as a reminder to everybody in the county what would happen if you committed such a terrible deed.
On the 14th of March 1806, Tom Otter was hanged outside Lincoln Castle. He wept openly on the scaffold, his bravado gone, and made a full confession to the murder. 6 days later, a gibbet was ready. Tom's corpse was stitched into a canvas sack and placed inside an iron cage, custom made to fit his body. The gibbet post, a 30-foot oak beam, was raised near the murder site, just 100 yards from where Mary was found. Thousands came to see it. Some reports say it was like a fairground, with drinking stalls and music, but others were disturbed. For the locals, the permanent presence of a rotting body in the lane was no entertainment. Gibbeting was common under the Murder Act of 1752, an added punishment for murderers, but few gibbets lasted as long as Otter's. His skeleton hung there for over 40 years, swaying in the Fenland wind. Farmers avoided the area, children were warned away, but still people came.
The name where his body swung for 44 years still bears his name, Tom Otter's Lane. Now, I don't know how I feel about this, it's almost like glamorising it. Apparently then it was to just remind people of what happened, and obviously it's a part of history. It reminds people where the last gibbet in Lincolnshire actually was. But it's a bit grim, isn't it? I'm not sure whether I agree, whether it's glorifying it or not. Let me know in the comments what your opinions are on this.
We We are now on a road called Tom Otter's Lane, obviously named after Tom Otter, but it's around here near Drinsey Nook. The sort of two were very, very close to each other, and this is near where they discovered Mary's body. I believe this is also where they had the gibbet hanging. This is why they've named the road after Tom, after that grim discovery. It would also be interesting to find out what other roads in the UK were named after very grisly events. If you've got any near to where you live, or you know of any, let me know in the comments.
Years passed, Otter's bones decayed, his story fading. But the final twist in the tale is perhaps the strangest of all. Several reports from the 1830s tell of a nest of birds, tom tits, discovered inside Otter's skull. One had made its nest in his gaping mouth, feeding its young on what little remained. As one naturalist wrote, he actually took possession of the dead man's mouth and brought forth a brood of young cannibals. A morbid poem followed. There were 10 tongues all in one head. The 10th went out to fetch some bread, to feed the living in the dead. In 1850, a storm finally brought the post down. The last gibbet in Lincolnshire had rotted away.
If you keep on driving past Tom Otter's Lane, you will get to a place called Doddington Hall. And I'm told, according to the internet, that they still have a little piece of the gibbet on display. Now, they did lend it out to Lincoln Castle a little while ago for an exhibition, but I believe it's back here. But if you do want to, depending on when you're watching this video, if you want to come specifically for that, then obviously do check their website or give them a call.
As the decades rolled on, so did the stories. Locals whispered of a woman in white, glimpsed on misty mornings near the lane, of footsteps heard behind lone walkers, only to find no one there. My friend who once worked at the Sun Inn claimed that Tom was to blame for a lot of the paranormal activity there. She herself was even shut in the cleaning cupboard one night, only for the door to finally open on its own. She told me that that was just one of many frightening experiences. In the 1970s, a lorry driver who broke down on Otter's Lane said he saw a bloodied man in old-fashioned clothing pacing the verge, but when he stepped out to speak, the figure was gone. Whether it's Tom's tormented spirit or Mary still walking the moor, no one knows for sure, but many avoid that stretch after nightfall, and many paranormal investigators still like to explore it.
And so ends this week's episode. Thank you to everybody for watching, and thank you to everybody that supports the video by liking, commenting, subscribing and sharing. I know it's been another grisly one. Now, next week we do have a brand new episode, and that's another one full of ghastly tales, horrible histories from Lincolnshire. So if you're interested in that and you haven't subscribed, please do, so you don't miss out on that one. So until next week, friends, stay curious, keep wandering, and if you're out and about, don't forget to keep your eye on those street names. Thanks everyone. I've been Claire. This has been The Wanderlust Way. Take care.